Christie, the governor of the great state of New Jersey, and I think likely Republican candidate for president, he sure likes the media and the spotlight that comes with it, and he gives us what we love best here, which is terrific quotes. Governor at it again last night at an event in D.C., and he didn't disappoint, Andrew.
Rich, here's how tasty Chris Christie's cooking was last night in D.C. He told the crowd Obamacare will fail, and that ain't even good enough for us to get into because he also hammered Republicans on the shutdown. He said, quote, I think there were a number of people in Congress on the Republican side of the aisle who just did not have an endgame strategy. Ted Cruz, hint, hint. Another smack, since Obamacare is still currently being funded and the government is reopened. Maybe I'm too cynical, he said, but it appears to me the strategy of defunding it by closing the government failed. On running in 2016, can he beat Hillary? No idea, he said, playing it coy. So what kind of Republican can beat Hillary? Perhaps the Christie kind. Quote, I think we have to stop as a party to all the tried and true ways of running these campaigns. They aren't working, and we need someone who will be clear, direct, authentic, and say what they think. But maybe the biggest surprise from Christie was what he said about President Obama. Not exactly at bromance level, but certainly some brospect. Christie saying, quote, he feels bad for President Obama because he just won a year ago, and everyone's like, so who's next? And there's still work to be done in this country, and as we shove him out the door, we minimize his ability to be an effective executive, and we shouldn't do that. So I'm not rushing. I'll make that decision about 2016 when I have to. Rich?
Interesting.
I loved everything that he said, actually, because it was in response to questions. It wasn't like he was having a press conference to say it. Everything he said, to me, was very logical. In fact, it was so obvious that it didn't seem like he was...
Didn't seem contrived. Yeah, but here's my question. And these guys, both of them disregard this unilaterally. So let's leave them out of our private conversation.
I am not cynical.
Okay, hold on. The same people who say, fine, that works on the Sunday morning talk shows, and that might work here when it's open mic night for Chris Christie, try that in Iowa, try that in New Hampshire. He has gone to the Washington Times equivalent events in D.C. where you have the hardline conservatives who are rooting for his failure, and he wins them over by the end of the hour. My question to you is, can you be what he says, authentic? And I'll give you a perfect example. New Jersey, there's going to be a bill that's going to come to his desk which will offer in-state tuition rates for children of illegal immigrants, children who come here, DREAM Act kids.
Right.
If he does that, can he position this as saying, listen, I'm for strong borders, but I'm not for, shafting kids who take this? That kind of an example without being a non-starter in the primary process.
It's going to be difficult, but he might just bring the DREAM Act down to, say, children who are 10 and under when they came to the country, not some to 50, and something where it's a little different. The only thing I think he has to be concerned with is he can be so authentic for so long that people will get tired of him. So it would be good not to be in the news for a few months. He doesn't have to be in the news every week.
Can Chris Christie do that? Can he manage? What are we going to do? What are we going to do if Chris Christie is not around to tell us how great he is and how he's going to, and before he starts feeling bad for the president, how about this governor?
But look at that governor. Look at that, Dom.
Wait,
Governor, by the way. He has a higher favorability rating, easy for me to say, in New York than Governor Cuomo right now. What does that tell you?
It says that
it
says to me that he's selling a bill of goods. It says to me that Andrew Cuomo is not out there as much. Andrew Cuomo doesn't really do the media.
But your point is overexposure is a bad thing. It's obviously playing pretty good with New Yorkers.
But I just want to make this one point. Chris Christie says he feels bad for President Obama. Well, before you feel bad, Governor, how about you get elected president and then feel bad for Mr. Obama?
See, I thought he was being sympathetic to one of the few people.
Well, Obama doesn't need him. He's one of X amount of governors.
But he's so right. It's not. Well, it is a diss against the president.
It's a good point.
But at any rate,
it's a good point.
Look,
he's brilliant.
I don't know about
my
that.
big worry for him for 2016 is New Hampshire and Iowa. You got to spend a year in each state basically before that. Chris Christie every single day on Iowa media, every single day in New Hampshire media.
It's not going to work.
The congressman was worried it might get old. It might get old.
He walks in one of those diners, Richard. Trust me, when I walked in, they looked at me like I had 3 heads. And he's going to walk in with his tough-talking Chris Christie?
There's so many ways I could go with that. I'm not going to. But here's my one thing, though. Today we saw a poll at the top of the show, Dominic, where Mitt Romney,
Yes.
if there was a redo of the election, and I know I don't put a lot,
Right.
the public would have chosen him over the president today, obviously on the heels of the debacle of the rollout of health care. Mitt Romney and Chris Christie, the temperature of the American public and the distaste for all of the typical DC machinations and the lack of authenticity. I just think if the attitude in a couple of years is the attitude that we see today, they want something different. He's the closest thing to different you can find.
Perhaps, but I think what's going on is Hillary Clinton is in the on deck circle, and America wants to see is she going to hit a grand slam. That America wants to see Hillary Clinton against the Republican candidate, and I don't think Chris Christie will come close to beating her.
It would be pay-per-view to see her and Christie in a debate. I'll say that much. At least for us in this business, that would be fun to watch.
He's got to worry about the nomination before he worries about Hillary
That's
Clinton.
true.
And I don't think he's going to win the nomination.
All right. Do you guys think he was going to win 5 years ago when he ran for governor?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Let me go back and check the tapes.
Yeah.
But Richard,
The answer is
but
no.
I want to ask you a quick question before we go to a break.
I didn't.
What happens when he gets out in Iowa or New Hampshire?
Don't make him have to be Rob Ford here for a minute. He's not going to be doing that.
And throws a temper tantrum. What happens then?
See, I've learned, because I thought the temper tantrum would have sunk him before. I would have thought he would have had trouble for re-election. I'm just telling you, I haven't found too many people I've met, including Democrats, who don't like this guy. They respect him, even if they think that he can be a bully, because they don't think they have to guess what he means. And I'm only telling you, I have a decent pulse on this stuff. People so want to trust somebody now, and even they don't even have to agree with
That's
it.
true.
They
So
just
he better
want
not get involved in
authenticity.
any scandal.
He better not. Right. I'm with you on that. Okay.
He'll go
When we
whoosh.
come back, we will turn to New York City, where light him if you got him. Not so fast, though, if you're 18. A new law reignites an old debate about where does adulthood start for certain subjects. We'll get into that after this.